Okay, guys, we're going to go through some of the U-try problems, and I'm going to give you a further explanation when we get into the more harder ones that you were supposed to do. So, the measure of angle R is 7x plus 19 degrees. If x is equal to 23, find the measure of angle R, then classify the angle. Well, this one's pretty easy because they tell you angle R is 7x plus 19, and then they're telling you what x is. So in order to find the measure of the angle, you're going to have to plug in the value of x. So this would simply become 7 times 23 plus 19. And then you would just simplify. So this becomes 161 plus 19, which ends up giving you 180. So that means that the measure of angle R is equal to 180 degrees. And a 180 degree angle is classified as a straight angle. And there you have it. You would repeat the same process with number 4. So they give you what angle Y is, they give you what X is. So you simply substitute in. So this becomes 4 times 17 plus 22. Simplifying, and remember guys, you can use your calculators. This becomes 68 plus 22, which gives us 90. So the measure of angle Y is equal to 90 degrees. And we know a 90 degree angle is a right angle. All right, so now is where we're going to get into more harder problems, the ones that I think gave a lot of you trouble. So the measure of angle J is x plus 7, and the measure of angle K is 12x minus 27. If the sum of the measures of the angles is 123, find the measure of each angle. So with this one, it's important to notice that you have 2 angles we're talking about. So we have angle J, which is represented by x plus 7, and we have angle K, which is represented by 12x minus 27. Now, they give us this key word in the next sentence, if the sum. Now, remember, sum is an important word in math. So sum tells us it's the what. Okay, so if you said answer to addition, you're correct. Okay, so that's something that you guys need to remember. Okay, so like this is a good starting point. Could help you with the discussion post too. Okay, so they tell you the sum is 123. Now, just so you guys are also aware, but the word is in math is a good indication of an equal sign. Okay, so is in math is a good indication of an equal sign. And then it says find the measure of each angle. Well, in order to do that, first you're going to have to solve for x. And you might be wondering how you're going to do that, but you know that the measure of angle J and the measure of angle K have to give you a sum of 123. So I can plug in what I know about J, which is that it's x plus 7. And then I can add that to what K is, which is 12x minus 27. And now you simply have an equation to solve. So remember, you would combine your like terms. So that gives me 13x. And then I have positive 7, negative 27. So that gives me negative 20 is equal to 123. And I'm just going to carry this up here. So I would add 20 to both sides. So now you get 13x is equal to 143. And then you would simply solve your one-step equation. So divide by 13, you get x to equal 11. Okay? But I didn't answer the final question yet, which is to find the measure of each angle. So under step 2 now, you have to find the measure of angle J. Well, you know what x is, so you can simply just plug that in for what you know about j. So that's going to simply become 11 plus 7. So the measure of angle J is equal to 18 degrees. And you would repeat the same process to find the measure of angle K. Now K is 12 times x, which is 12 times 11 minus 27. 12 times 11 gives me 132 minus 27. And then the measure of angle K is going to be equal to 105 degrees. And if you want to, guys, you could take 18 plus 105 and double check to see if that'll give you this sum of 123. And if I do the math, it does. Okay, so it's important to note here that you are given angle measures. Yes, they're expressions, but you're given the angle measures. They tell you the sum of your two angles. So you would just have to set up an equation now to represent that. So I take the two angles, add them together, and then solve for x first, and then plug it into your two expressions to get what each individual angle is. All right. Now we're going to jump down to number 8. I'm just going to read number 8 first, and then we're going to go from there. So the measure of angle R is 3 degrees less than twice the measure of angle S. If the sum of the measures of the two angles is 72 degrees, find the measure of each angle. All right, so now, doing what we always do, underline the important parts. So the measure of angle R, 3 degrees less than twice measure of angle S. Now, let's just break that down because it has 3 degrees less than. Think about it. What does the word less than mean? All right, so if you said less than is subtracting, you are correct. So remember, less than means subtract. Okay, so that's another important piece for you guys to know. Now, if I were to say twice of something, think about what I mean when I say twice. That really means you have 2 of something. So if I say twice, what operation do you think you might need here? Well, if you said multiplication, you are correct. So you will need to be multiplying when you see the word twice. Now, there's one other piece that you need to remember with using this word less than. Okay? When we filled in and colored in those tables before, way back in like November, we drew a little arrow with the word less than. And the reason being is you need to make sure that you reverse the order. Okay? Because I have twice the measure of angle S, and that angle R is less than that by 3 degrees. Okay? So, let's take this first part. And let's get started with writing it. So the measure of angle R is, there's a key word again. That word is. Now we said is means an equal sign. So I know the measure of angle R is 3 degrees less than, so I know I'm going to be subtracting, but with less than, I have to reverse it. So since 3 degrees comes first, I'm not going to do 3 minus. The 3 is going to have to be the second part because of this less than. Now it says twice the measure of angle S. Well, if it says twice the measure of angle S, I'm going to have to multiply it with angle S. So let me just move this over a little bit. So I'm going to have to take twice the measure of angle S, and you're subtracting 3 from that. Now, going to the next part, it says the sum of the two angles is 72. I need to find the measure of each angle. Well, you're probably wondering, what else is there to say about angle S? They don't tell us anything else. But since they're not telling us anything else, that doesn't mean we don't know anything about it. Because think about what we have been doing. If you were unsure of what something could be, what can we use to represent that? So if you said a variable, you are correct. So that means I can say the measure of angle S is equal to a variable. And you can pick any variable you want. I'm just going to pick X. Okay, so now I'm just going to rewrite my measure of angle R to represent this. So this becomes 2x minus 3. Now, I can take what I know about the measure of angle S and what I know about the measure of angle R and deal with sum and the two angles being 72. Okay, so I know the measure of angle S plus the measure of angle R has to be 72. So now plugging in what we just discovered, you have a multi-step equation that you can easily solve. Okay, so you would combine your like terms, so that gives you 3x minus 3 is equal to 72. Add 3. You get 3x is equal to 75. Get x by itself by dividing. So x equals 25. All right, are we done? No. Because we have to find the measure of each angle now. So that means you're plugging in x into each one of these. So if I plug in x for measure of angle S, it's plain and simple. Measure of angle S is equal to 25 degrees. Now the measure of angle R, I'm going to just have to do a little bit of work. So I'm going to take 2 times 25 and I'm going to subtract 3. So 2 times 25. So really it's like saying 2 quarters, which gives me 50 cents. So that would be 50 minus 3. So that gives me 47. So the measure of angle R is 47 degrees. Okay, so they're the two measures of your angles that you need to know here. All right, I hope that's making more sense for you guys. Again, these words right here, these 4 that we have listed, are really important for you guys to know. They're going to really help you with being able to identify what operations you have to be using. A key sign word is in there. So let's take a moment now and let's jump over to the next set of U-tries that you guys had to do. All right, so you guys had to do 3, 4, and 6 on here. And remember, with classifying, you had to use vertical, adjacent, complementary, and supplementary. Okay, so remember, vertical angles, we said form that bow tie. So remember, that means that they're going to make a little bow tie effect. And vertical angles end up being congruent. So it could be either directly right across going left to right, or they can make a bow tie going up and down. Okay, some people also think of it as an hourglass, so like that little timer you flip over when you're playing games. Adjacent, they're next to one another, but the one thing that you have to keep in mind is when being adjacent, you have to have a common vertex. Okay, so that's that point, and you need a common side. Now, complementary, they have to add up and give you 90 degrees. And then supplementary, they have to add to give you 180 degrees, okay? So, just like C comes first in the alphabet, 90 comes first before 180. Okay, so if that helps you remember. Same thing with supplementary. 180 is larger than 90, and S comes last in the alphabet compared to C. All right, looking at number 3. So just going down this list that we wrote just a minute ago. Vertical angles, they form a bow tie. So if I look at angle 1 and angle 2, let me see, if I draw in a bow tie like Mr. Belfort wears sometimes, going either way. Also, if you watch NBC 10 News, Glenn Hurricane Schwartz. Now, if I notice 1 and 2 are in 2 different colors, so that means that they can't be vertical. All right, let me get rid of this for you guys then. So now looking at them, I see that they're next to one another. Now, adjacent angles have to have a common vertex, so that's a point. So even though it's a multiple angles in this figure, they still have that common point. Now, they also have a common side. So let me see. In between the two, oh, they're right next door to one another. So they have a common side, meaning these angles are adjacent. Okay, and remember, it could be more than one name too. So now I'm going to look. Well, 1 and 2, they're not going to be making 90 degrees because a 90-degree angle would have the little box. If I notice, though, angle 1 is right here and angle 2 is this whole thing. Well, if I notice, those two parts form a straight line. A straight line has 180 degrees, which tells me angle 1 and angle 2 are also supplementary. Okay, so just because they're one, they can also be something else. I do recommend, guys, that you do draw on the figures. It's really going to help you. All right, looking at number 4, you guys had to, again, identify and classify. So again, going through the list with the possibilities. Oh, they form that bow tie. That means they're vertical. Now, this was a question brought up during one of my office hours, but vertical and adjacent angles can't happen at the same time. Okay, it just doesn't happen that way. So I'm not even going to try adjacent complementary. I don't know anything about the angle measures, so I can't say that they're going to add up to 90, and I can't say anything about supplementary. So in this case, they are going to be vertical angles. And then number 6, they're not vertical because they're not across from one another. They're not adjacent because they don't have common side and common vertex. So that means I'm left with complementary and supplementary. So I'm going to see if they end up being one of them by simply adding the angles together. I add them together, they give me 90 degrees. Now 90, C, S, oh man, which one comes first? C comes first. That means these angles are complementary. Okay? All right. So there's those 3 U-Try problems for you guys. I'm going to jump down to the next set that you guys had to do. All right. So now looking at 14. With 14, 16, 18, and 20, you guys had to find the measure of the angle. Well, this has a clear indication of 90 degrees. So in order to solve for x, you simply just have to take 90 minus 71, and you get x to equal 29. Okay, so that, or not 29, 19. What am I thinking? 19. All right, number 16 is a little more difficult, but there's one part you can do right away. So if I draw it in for you guys, we learned in the lesson that vertical angles are congruent to one another. Well, 54 and y are vertical angles, so y is also going to have to be 54 degrees. Okay, and it doesn't matter, you don't have to go in alphabetical order solving them. Now, x and z end up being vertical, but I don't know what either one is yet. But if you look at it, x and 54, they make up a straight angle or a straight line. We know they have 180 degrees, so in order to solve for x is going to be equal to 180 minus the 54. Okay, because I need to figure out what is x going to be in order to make up 180 degrees. Well, solving that, you get 126 degrees. So x is equal to 126. Well, since x is equal to 126, z is also equal to 126 degrees because it's a vertical angle. Okay? All right. 18. These three individual angles make up a straight angle that equals 180 again. So you can do it as x is equal to 180 degrees minus 51 minus 18. And the reason why I'm doing that is because I know I need in total 180 degrees. Well, I have to take away 51 and I have to take away 18 to get what x is going to be individually. And that's going to be 111. And you can always double check, guys, by adding those three numbers together to see if they do give you 180. And in this case, they do. All right. Probably the one that gave you the most trouble here is number 20. So if I look at 20, there's a lot of parts here. But one thing you guys should notice is you have this 90 degree. Well, if that part is 90 degrees, that means this part over here is also 90 degrees. So I know x has to also equal 90 degrees. W, since you know the 90 degrees, you have 34 that make up part of it. So in order to get W, you're going to do 90 minus 34. And that means W ends up equaling 56 degrees. Okay, so this part's 56. This is 90. Now, you can solve for Y really easy too. And I'm going to draw it in for you guys. And the reason why I say it's easy is because these two angles are what? If you just said vertical to yourself, you're correct. And vertical angles are congruent. So that's 34 degrees as well. Now, Y and Z make up a straight angle. So in order to get Z, I just have to take 180 minus 34 and get Z to equal 146 degrees, okay? And if I add 146 and 34, I do get 180. All right. Last examples that we're going to do together are 22 and 23. These are probably easier for you guys considering you just have to find one part. But if angle 1 and angle 2 are vertical, oh man, that's a big keyword right there. Angle 1 and angle 2 being vertical. That tells me that they need to be congruent to one another. Well, they then tell me angle 1 is 128 degrees. Well, if angle 1 and angle 2 have to be congruent, which means equal, that means the measure of angle 2 also has to be 128 degrees. All right, 23. If J and K are complementary, 90 degrees. J and K, that means angle J plus angle K has to equal 90. Well, if K is 73, the measure of angle J is simply going to be equal to 90 minus 73. And that's going to give you the measure of angle J being 17 degrees. Okay, so that's going through the U-tries. Kind of just going back real fast, guys, to these problems right here. It's really important that you pay attention to the words. Like the problem that I went through with you guys with the more than means what operation? Addition. Okay? And I know it's difficult sometimes with reading it and then trying to write it in words, but it's really important just to break it down, kind of like I did with number 8, where I said the measure of angle R, and I wrote what the measure of angle R, and then is. Is means equal, okay? This is the big one that you guys need to remember. 3 degrees less than twice the measure of angle S, okay? Read the sentence a few times if you need to. Like looking at number 7, if I were to read it, the measure of angle E is. So I have the measure of angle E is 18 degrees more than, so I'm just going to write 18 degrees more than the measure of angle F. And I'm just going to write measure of angle F. If the sum of the two angles is 96 degrees. So you can just simply show measure of angle E plus the measure of angle F has to equal 96 degrees. And then it says find the measure of each angle. Well, again, telling yourself, but I don't know anything else about angle F. Again, just because they don't tell you, that doesn't mean you don't know anything about it. Because again, you can assign variables to represent those. Okay? So it's just really important, guys, to just break it down, take your time, read it a few times. I know I have to sometimes, but just do what's best for you. All right, I hope that made some clarification. Again, this part right here is going to help you with that discussion post. You can use some of those words. All right, you have a few other tasks for you guys to complete today. If you have any questions, please reach out, message me, come to Zoom. I do miss all of you, so it'd be nice to see some faces on Friday. All right, guys, have a great day.